Okay, I don't even remember how to do the background blur back. There we go. All righty, Danibus SALG. We'll see how many people we get show up today. I'll probably be putting clips of this on YouTube, on Instagram. If you don't want your face shown, then don't show it. Need to change your name? Go ahead. Or I'll blur your face out if you want, but I will be using this audio and video for promotion and teaching and stuff like that. So Danibus, if you're there, bring on your mic. Let me talk to you. What's your name? What's up, man?
Hello, I'm here. I was just waiting, see if anybody pops up.
Yeah, we'll see. Sometimes they've shown up and sometimes people have signed up and they thought it was their time 12. And we've had
Yeah, I was back and forth with the time, but I figured out, yeah. So it's all good. I'm happy to be here. Happy to have the opportunity, yeah.
where are you?
I'm in Denmark,
Denmark.
in Scandinavia, if it says anything.
Is your name Danibus?
Yeah, my name is Sebastian.
Sebastian.
My yeah, what I'm doing is I'm here in the name of Danabis, you know. So yeah.
So tell me about your environment. Are you an indoor grower, outdoor grower, grow cannabis, you grow vegetables? How do you grow outside? How do you grow indoors? Talk for a bit.
Yeah, sure. I have this cannabis field, hemp field. Uh, that's kind of the only thing we can get permission for growing in Denmark now. So that's what I jumped on. So I'm growing hemp on a outdoor field that's 5,000 square meter ish. So I can put I don't know 1,500, couple of thousand plants out there in the season. And everything I'm doing is KNF, Jadam mixed up. So all my inputs is from there. Everything homemade, everything from nearby. Low budget, everything. Um, yeah, and I've been going for 3 years now with the setup. So this is the first year where it's proper like yeah. Yeah. Takes a
So
while to get the system.
what kind of soil are you using? Or have you created soil? Did you bring in compost? How did you get your fields to be ready?
Yeah, I started making composts for a couple of years, and I made 20 cubic meters or something of compost. But it's all made by hand, so it takes some long days in the summertime
Strong.
to yeah, and I don't have the equipment to turn and stuff. So yeah, I decided to order a lot of compost in to the field. Kind of had to. Uh, so that's it's a mix up. The bottom layer is my own compost, and then I put 20 centimeter, 15 centimeter of compost on top. So that's like my grow medium. And
Are you required by your government to do something to your compost or to meet certain standards when you're making compost, like temperature or turning or the time it must sit there?
yeah, I heard people talk about it, but not in Denmark. I haven't heard anything that you're supposed to any requirements like that. No.
Have you ever tried not turning your compost, just letting it sit there?
Yeah, I still have one that's ongoing. That's been there for a couple of years now or something. Uh, and it have mostly been a cold compost. Uh, and it starts looking like some soil
Yeah.
to go to. Yeah.
Yeah, I would my system now, man, because I agree, making compost, like turning it and all that, way too much work. I don't even
Uh-huh.
turn it anymore. Mine is
No.
just layered with food scraps, and then usually it's mowed grass or leaves, but then maybe some IMO3. I always put bokashi in there, but constantly
Uh-huh.
laying it, and then I don't mess with it. The red wigglers start to
No.
eat it during the cooler times, and the black soldier flies eat it the other warmer temperatures, but that's just because I was tired of turning compost, and it works. It works just fine.
Yeah.
Leave it there.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I like the approach for sure. Do you
Do
have
you grow
worms in the
indoors?
compost?
Sebastian, do you grow indoors?
No, I just have this starting place here where I am now. A tiny room, my old playground in here. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. Much it. Um, so I'm waiting for the greenhouse to heat up. It's still cold, like outside. So yeah,
So what is your growing season there? How many months do you get to grow in?
I usually start around the 1st of May. Uh, that's the kind of the earliest you can jump outside with anything, and uh, and then I go to October sometime. It's a pretty good season length, I would say. Uh, yeah.
Wow. All right. That gives me a good idea, kind of what you're
Yeah.
doing and what you're up against. Do you have
Yeah.
do you have any specific questions that you've been wanting to ask?
Yeah. I wrote some questions down.
Okay, let's
Uh,
get into those.
yeah, sure. I have
Start.
the first question is just slugs because that's a thing I see every time I look in my ground around. Uh,
What was it
and
again?
slugs. And
Slugs.
yeah,
So do you feel like you got like way too many of them?
yeah. In a way, I do. Uh, there's a lot of small ones coming now. Yeah, I know some ways to do it, but I would just want to ask if you have any experience with keeping them out of the garden.
I have slugs,
Yeah.
and because I have a lot of wood that grows fungi on it, and that they love to eat mushrooms and bacteria, and that's what they chew on. I've got videos of slugs as long as my hand just chomping a whole mushroom down.
Uh-huh.
I don't worry about them though. Like
No.
I do see them. I see them crawl on the top of the garden at night. You can see the slime trails going back and
Hmm.
forth.
Yeah.
But again, my style is they're part of nature, and they're doing their thing. Like they're going to
Mm.
be anywhere that there's been carbon and organic matter dropped to the ground, and saprophobes get a hold of it and start to chew it up and eat it. And then the
Mm.
then the second layer of things come in, the shredders, the worms, the slugs, all that stuff. So if now there, I'm not saying there can't be problems where they're just like, I love this plant, we're gonna chew on it. Now there might be a plant that they love and they just want to go after, but in my
Yeah.
garden they don't. In my garden they're eating mushrooms, and
Yeah.
I let them be.
Yeah. But you don't pop seeds in the soil. You pre-sprout everything, right?
Yeah, if sometimes things will just germinate themselves from preseason growing and things like that, but I always try to start from seed, but I can't start seed in my compost because there's so many bugs and things in there that
Mm.
once that seed cracks, they'll go right to the meat of it and eat it. Some might
Yeah.
get through, but often I can't pop seeds in my compost. I typically will I'll reuse a potting soil that I've created, and I always just dump those little containers back into a 5-gallon bucket. I might mix a little compost in there, or who knows what. But
Mm.
but yeah, I use a potting soil to start seeds.
Yeah. Okay. But do you make your own potting soil sometime? Like starting?
Yeah, it's actually a reused potting soil from a fruit market. It has,
Yeah. Okay.
it's got It's very light, it's very fluffy. It's got a lot of the perlite stuff in it, which I don't like
Mm.
perlite just
No.
because it floats to the top and all that. I never use it, but it's
No.
good for a light, fluffy growing medium to get a seed started. So
Uh-huh. Sure.
now you can if you heat compost, if you get it thermophilic, if you get your compost up to 150 or 160 for a few days, it'll
Mm.
kill off about everything in there. And then you can grow in a compost like that. But mine never really gets to 120, you know. It's pretty cool. It stays in a good temperature to welcome a lot of biology in there. Lots of things. I think a lot of people look at my compost and be like, "Oh my gosh, you've got those in there," or something like that. I'd be like, "Yeah, I got everything in there. It's just the way it is,
Uh,
and just let
yeah.
it roll." So that'll start seeds and compost.
Mm. And you got those black soldier flies. We don't got them around here.
You don't.
No, we don't.
Do you
Oh, we
have anything
got something else,
else?
but
Yeah, yeah, worms.
yeah, I got worms everywhere I look. I have uh, I have this old straw roof. You know, these old buildings with a special roof on. So whenever the locals they go, this company they go take down the roof, they come and bring it to my field. So it's like straws that have been sitting on the roof for 25, 30 years or something. So it's already pretty well broken down. So that's I got a layer of at least 20 centimeter all over the field,
Yeah,
kind of.
good.
Uh, so that's also a thing with the slugs, they can just thrive down there. But there's a lot of life, of course. It's not only them. Yeah. Yeah.
There's things you can get for slugs, but I just don't worry about it. But
No,
it's totally okay to be like, I don't like the amount of slugs I got. It's just making me nervous. I'm not a comfortable grower with this around.
no,
You got to
exactly.
make yourself feel good and feel comfortable, and just do what you can do what you got to do to make that circle of peace closed as a grower,
Mm,
as a farmer.
yeah,
That always worrying about slugs. It's just not a fun thing. So
no.
it's either you get over it or you study more and figure out what you got to do.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure.
Find that peace.
Yeah, 100. That makes sense. All right. I have a second question. That's if you make a humic acid yourself,
Yeah,
like like uh, have it in a kind of in a bottle for itself, humic acid.
you bet you can do that.
Uh,
You can let me tell you how to make it because it
yeah.
sounds yeah, you can make it there with the if you're making compost, you can get humic acid going. You get that most broken down compost. And one of the best things to do if you're going to make some humic acid is you want it to kind of solubilize. You want to get it wants to get into the liquid, the water that you're going to mix this compost material in. So what
Mm,
I do is often I'll get my compost that's very well broken down and been processed by the worms, by the shredders, by the bacteria and all that. And I'll put it on
mm,
a screen or two, a mesh screen that has, small little holes in it, and just shake and shake and shake. And I don't press or anything. I just shake and back and forth, and then I'll dump that off, and everything that fell through is very light and fluffy, real particulate matter, little bitty bits and pieces, and that's the best thing to use to make a good humic acid is those
okay.
bitty parts, because that's what it is. Things are breaking down into the smaller compounds, and that dark humus is what you're looking for. And when I go out into the woods, roll a log back and look right up under the log or even on the log, and you'll see a darker layer of things. You'll see the darker layer of dirt. And that's that dirt you want to go for. It's been there for quite some time, breaking down. And that's what you can use to make your own humic acid. You can actually dump that in water and mix that up every time you need to use it.
Hmm.
You put that in a mesh bag. You can, just soak it in the water for a little bit, dump it in there and keep your dirt particles out as best you can. But I like the dirt particles in there. I just let it set
Mm.
off in there. And man, what will happen is when you use it and you let it sit, all the particles will settle to the bottom. The liquid above will be a little dark, but man, once you give it boom, one shake, it just explodes into a black liquid, solid black liquid. And that's a good mixture when it does that. So use your own compost to make your own, you can make your own humic acids. It's the easiest,
Okay.
cheapest way to do it.
Yeah, sure. But you're using it like in your own garden. You make it specific humic acid, or it's just a part of your GLF or whatever.
It's separate. I make it
Yeah.
by its own I got its own container. It's about a 4 that I have right now. But I
Okay.
see also also I have a couple of other options. I use my compost to make humic acid, but I also have a material that a guy sent me. We traded materials, and he sent
Mm.
me humus material from the forest floors of Oregon. Those big
Okay.
forest floors there. Nothing grows. It's just everything's been falling. It gets chewed up immediately and just gone. And then it's into
Hmm.
the dark rich soil. I'll take a spoonful of that and put it into about a half a gallon of water, shake it up, and I'll use that as humic acid also. And then the other option I have is an actual liquid form of a humic acid that a guy made. And it's super dark and he processed it out, but it's just it takes a little bit, just a shot of that stuff into a gallon of water and it'll turn the whole thing just basically dark black. So there's options.
Even mix those three together, like
You could mix them all together, yeah.
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 Uh,
But you're just
that's,
trying to get that dark material. That's it. Once you
yeah.
get the dark material, the humic acids are in that material, and you're just steeping them out. It's an easy way to do it.
Sure. Sure. I think it's the one of the only inputs I haven't really went into. So yeah, it's good to hear. It's easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
easy.
100%.
What else you got?
Um,
Ellen,
yeah, what else do I got?
keep asking.
Um,
Take your time.
I
Look
have
for
yeah, sure, man. I got beside my water tank where I have my pump on. I have all these barrels, 200 liters, and these pallet tanks, and I'm trying to like separate stuff. So one tank seaweed, one tank horse manure, one tank coffee grinds. So I kind of have an understanding what's in it, uh, nutrient wise. Uh, but when I see whatever you're doing and most people doing is just gather stuff to get as much uh, of a balance in whatever's nutrients in there instead of have specific stuff. Uh, I, I don't know what you would prefer if it's like a little bigger operation compared to a backyard grow.
So I think that like as a small farm, as a kind of a farm that's trying to make a profit of some kind, even and ultimately you make it as easy as you possibly can and making like a JLF out of tons of stuff is the easiest way to do it. You can
Mm.
you can definitely separate it out if that's the kind of grower you are or kind of farmer you are. It's like, I want to feed my cannabis back to my cannabis and my corn back to my corn. So you make a cannabis specific JLF and a corn specific JLF because there is wisdom in doing that. It's you're steering the microbes, like the microbiology that was in the corn that help it grow. you took those plants, you made a JLF out of it, you're still going to have some of that microbiology in the JLF, and you're just going to dump those microbes right back into the corn growing you're doing again. And you're just cycling the same biology and the same nutrients as best you can. And that's the idea. So there's wisdom behind it. However, it does take more containers, it takes more, separation, takes more room, takes more water. Whereas if you dump everything into one big container and you let it just sit there and leach out, and the bacteria, the biology breaks it down, pulls the nutrient out. It's an easier it's an easier thing to really conceptualize. It's like one big tank, get the water out of it, it's in its own space. You've got other room to maybe have things you need, grow something or storage or something like that. But like it would depend on the material that you're storing, because you could do other things with the materials, such as the coffee that you have. That coffee could be used as an input into an IMO4, or even as a major input into an IMO5, the nitrogen source for the IMO5 making. Or you could even bokashi it. It wouldn't even have to be dried out. It could still be wet. All you'd have to do really is just add the labs and molasses and a little bit of water, just to judge your moisture. If you've ever made bokashi, you could, get a lactic. All it would be is you're trying to get something that has a lot of labs on it that you could spread out over. You can spread out over something that has a lot of nitrogen in it, chicken manures or other kinds of manures, or you could use it as a top dress to some of your no-till spots or something like that, just as a nitrogen source that has a lot of lab bacteria on it. You could throw that on your compost also. Use it as I use bokashi. If you may seen me, I've made bokafi is what I call it, and it's where I use coffee grounds and I treat it as bokashi, right? And it's used the same way. It's just a bokashi with a high nitrogen to it, and it works quite well. So the material would matter also. Like, what are you storing? What could it be used with and for on down the road if I don't just throw it in the JLF? All the fruits, vegetables, that's either your JLF or your compost. And then anything that could be grainy or dried out, and wouldn't start rotting because there's so much moisture. Anything you get the moisture out of, it could be used for soil prep to get the right texture that what you would want, to ferment it, all kinds of stuff.
You would prefer to have both dry ingredients and have the IMO and the wet microbial ingredients watered.
If I can use it in my IMO 3s and 4s and 5s, I like to try to use it there.
Yeah.
So things like fresh mowed grass is really green. It has a lot of nutrient. It has a lot of moisture also. So I'd rather it go into a JLF. Dry grass, like a hay or even a straw that you're talking about, that thatch roof stuff, that's great for an IMO 3, an IMO 4, an IMO 5. The idea is when you use stuff like that, it's just you're trying to use that, like the straw, you're trying to use that as an input to get to a certain texture that you want. An IMO 3 should have a fall apart, grainy, just rough texture, right? It's full of nuts and twigs and barks and leaves, and it's not all held together quite well, and it's just chunky. And then the IMO force, you should get it to a texture that you feel like you could grow something in it. Like it could actually hold moisture and something could contain it, or could withstand whatever's below it. A plant could let the roots go and it would thrive in that. So there has to be a certain structure to that soil. It can't just be all airy like an IMO 3. There's got to be some dirt and there's got to fill some holes in there. So that's what an IMO 4 texture would be. And then an IMO 5 texture is more like a top dress. You don't grow in it. So you want it to spread out thin. So whenever I make an IMO 5, I start screening material a lot, and I get it almost like a coffee ground feel. And it's applied easily. You can throw it, and it just particles out on you. It doesn't go out in chunks. So it depends on what the product is. What could you do with it? How could you structure a soil with it, and make it what you want to grow in? because
mm.
it's just organic material, man, and that's exactly what you want. You want lots of
Mm.
organic matter in your growing beds and all that. So
Well, that's what I'm really trying to put in the soil because where I am now, it used to be underneath water, like way back. So it's pretty sandy somewhere, the soil. So trying to put as much organic matter in there as possible. Uh,
yep.
uh, Bringing in logs and stuff from the forest that's been laying around for years and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's perfect.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I have a question. That's just winter, JLF. What do you do in the winter? Like,
With JLF, is that what you asked?
yeah, exactly. Just pump
Okay.
it up with organic material and let it stay. Yeah, I mean for the frost and because I had some barrels that was like squeezed out during the winter, it didn't pop, but yeah.
Yeah, so in the wintertime, mine will freeze. They froze this year. Man, I
Uh,
actually busted a lid open on one of my barrels because I just didn't catch it. I don't
uh,
use didn't use it much, and I thought I had it to a place where it would work, but it didn't. What you've got to do is you've got to get the barrel down to about a third of
mm,
space.
uh,
So you just got to get the water out. And it's the water. You can have material that's hanging out in there, but the water is what's going to freeze and lift everything up. So get the
mm,
water level down a third from the top of anything you have, because it is definitely going to freeze and it's going to rise a lot because that container
yeah,
is pulling it. So it's going straight up and nothing going
mm,
out. Everything's going to get pushed straight up. Now, here's how you deal with that though, because the problem then becomes, well, I got to feed tomorrow and I got no feeding. It's all in frozen water form, right? It's all ice now.
mm,
And what am I going to do?
uh,
So the best thing that you can do is, and what I do, and I even did it this year, and I still got caught one time that I was like, dang it, I'm out. I'm out of everything. And I was actually out of 5 gallon buckets with no frozen water. And I had to go inside and fill the water up in a bathtub and then bring it out and let it cool down to the temperature and try to go out that way. I still had to chisel JLF out. I had to shovel it out. So what I had done though was fill up 2 or 3 5 gallon buckets of JLF and put them inside the garage, inside the shed where
uh,
it just wouldn't get totally frozen, It would get
mm,
chilly and it'd even have a little ice on the top, but it wouldn't freeze totally. And that's
uh,
the only way that you can do it. You got to get a little out, and you got to put it into a smaller bit of JLF into a spot that just won't freeze. Otherwise, let
mm.
it freeze. It's no big deal.
No, no, exactly. I just want those barrels to be full nearly before going into winter, so it can just have a good time there and prepare itself.
Yeah, they'll freeze and they'll explode on you. They will. So make
Uh,
sure that you get the water out. And all you got to do, man, really, all you got to do is add more water. Just whenever spring comes around and it thaws and you can get water in there and get a good mix, just fill it back up with water, stir it all up real well, keep adding some
uh,
fresh greens in there. You're back in business. You're not going to tell, you're just not going to be able to tell a difference. If you're just applying JLF directly to fields, you're watering it down a little bit and whatever, you're not going to tell anything. And it's going to start breaking stuff down so fast again. All the microbes come right back, start working. Because, again, what happens in summer time here in Oklahoma, it'll be 100 degrees for 2 weeks straight, and it'll be hot, hot, hot. And at that point, the microbiology will be gassing off so hard that it will push the material up and it'll start spraying out under the lid, just like when the ice freezes and pushes it up.
mm.
So
Okay,
it's
yeah,
always at those times you gotta have when it's hot, hot or cold, cold, you gotta have the liquids out or you gotta have some of the material out.
uh-huh, sure. You have been fighting a little bit with it.
A
That's
bit.
good. Good. I have a question. It's like I pre-made a lot of pots now. I put the growing medium in because my thought was I wanted it to stand like that for at least a month while giving it microbial solutions. Would you rather have everything in a pile and just pot them whenever you're ready to sprout, or you see the idea of separating stuff and not disturbing it anymore?
What all would you have in your pile again? If you just put everything in a pile, what all are you adding to the pile? What is this?
The pile is just this like very light grow kind of cocos medium.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can add some of that to the compost, or just keep adding that to your stagnant pile that just does nothing but sit there. Just give it a turn every once in a while, mix that together. You definitely reuse that. And I would do it the easiest way possible. Just dump it back onto some other material that's been outside. That's going to help inoculate it, at least if it's just cocoa core kind of stuff that's really not much of anything except for
Mm,
sprouts to grow in. Get it broken down with the compost and all the other stuff that's just sitting there.
yeah.
It that way because you want mass. That's one thing with composting that sometimes isn't realized is you need a lot of material to get a little bit of compost, and that
Mhm,
cocoa core stuff will give it some body. Just meat it up a little bit, help spread it out, that kind of a thing. So again, it kind of depends on what you are needing it for. If you need to reuse it immediately, just grind it up, crush it up, and wet it up a little and reuse it for seedlings. Otherwise, try to increase your compost matter, the body of it
mm,
all.
mm. Can never get enough compost.
I mean, that's the truth.
Uh, um, yeah, I have a question. Just like gold water, pee. You have any experience using that?
Say it again, please.
Using pee as fertilizer?
A Pete,
Nah, pee,
spell it.
pee, like piss.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I couldn't tell you
Uh,
say pee or yeah. I pee in my compost all the time.
yeah, okay.
Um, like I tried to pee in my compost. I've even told my boys you can pee in my compost. Um, that's it's tons of nitrogen. And
Yeah,
really,
exactly.
actually, I think I'm pretty sure I've actually got the podcast. I'm gonna go back and listen to it. I took a picture of it with my phone at this moment in time on the podcast. Somebody on Leighton Morrison podcast. I can't remember what it is. It's on Future Cannabis Project. He
Oh,
said your own urine needs to set at 68 degrees for 1 month at least, and then it can be usable as a nitrogen source. And a lot of toxins or anything else that are in there, like if you had a urinary tract infection, something like that, the pH
mm,
will change so much in that time
okay.
that the pathogens can't live in that pH water. And that's basically how you would sterilize it. And then it
Hmm.
becomes a nitrogen source. But I got to go back and listen to that to make sure those are the times and temperatures that he said. So there's definitely use to it and it doesn't take that long. I have seen a guy also before on YouTube keep a massive container of his whole family's urine. And it
Yeah.
was big. And he said it had been going for a year or more. And he was said it's about time to use it. So I'm sure at maybe a bigger batch like he had, you kind of gotta keep working at it. But like a quart jar, I think was the idea. A quart jar of your own urine 1 month. The pH just needs to drop to a certain point and then usable as a nitrogen source, like in IMO5 or whatever you need it for.
Mm, okay.
Dump material. I'll just
Yeah.
pee in your compost, man.
Yeah, the compost will take care of the rest, I guess. No need to
Uh,
wait. Uh, Um, yeah. Um, I have a question. What your favorite companion plant is to cannabis? That like a must have in the garden.
man, oh God. Just went blank on the flower. The has all those seeds you can pull out of it. Anyway, not a petunia, not a daisy. I just went blank on it. Not a sunflower. I do grow sunflowers. I like
Okay.
sunflowers because I like to breed them. But anyway, a little bit of yellow flower and an orange flower. Not a zinnia, but somebody out there knows it. That's what I like to plant little bitty flowers that have an effect. Now, amaranth is something that can be grown as a prey plant, or a trap plant, something like that. The bugs kind of like it for some reason, and they'll be
Uh-huh.
attracted to it. That's the idea with some of these plants. We might have 1 minute left, Sebastian,
All
and
right.
just
All
get cut
right.
off. I appreciate you. I'll be doing some posts of these things of you and I talking a little on YouTube, things like that. So if